You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Reaching all the way back to 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition. Here is your host of Fate Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm so glad you're here. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. I'm excited. I first heard this guest about 3 or 4 years ago when my friend Frank Lee was interviewing him. And when I first heard him, I thought, oh, please, there's no way. This cannot possibly be something that's a reality. And you know what? I'm thinking it's a possibility, right? This is going to be so much fun. Stephen Myers has written extensively about the fact that he believes the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I'm assuming others similar to it that are around the world, were built as water pumps. And I'm going to tell you that I have spoken and heard someone else that I hold in great esteem as well discuss the possibility. It just never ceases to amaze me. And Stephen, I am so happy to welcome you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your patience in getting here. And hooray, here we are.
Here we are. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, I do too. And definitely worth the wait. So thank you for that.
It is. Oh, it is.
You know, I did first hear you several years ago, and I had not yet read the books, right? So when I did, it was just astounding to me. I had never even contemplated this as a possibility. Where did you come up with your theory?
Well, I have always been interested in technology. My background is a technical background. Several, degree, certificates, that type of thing. I enjoy technology. I'm a ham radio operator and also commercial class FCC radio telephone license. So I've always enjoyed technology and I like history. So if you like technology and history, ultimately you'll take a look at the Great Pyramid because it's a technological wonder that was built in distant history. So just like everybody, I got interested in pyramids in general and specifically the Great Pyramid. And I kind of wanted to know two things about it. I didn't want to know when it was built. I didn't want to know who built it. I didn't want to know the religion of the people that built it or anything like that, or even the culture. I wanted to know how this 45-story skyscraper was built and why would they do such a thing. So I got interested and read all these books and everything, and ultimately come up with this theory that is actually based on another author's theory. The foundation of what I'm doing is based on his theory. Edward Kunkel wrote a book called Pharaoh's Pump. Back in the first edition was 1962. So we built on his research and ultimately started a nonprofit foundation, and we're dedicated to understanding how and why the Great Pyramid was built.
Well, the nonprofit is called the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. And the website
in
again.
Honor of Edward Kunkel.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's the title of his book, Pharaoh's
Yes.
Pump. So to give him credit and honor, we named it after his book, in effect.
Well, your whole purpose is actually to research and develop the technologies that you believe were used to build and operate the Great Pyramid the way the originals intended it, right?
That's true. That's what we're doing. We think that the Great Pyramid is evidence that exhibits the idea that ancient people were geniuses, and there's some high technologies associated with the Great Pyramid, precision stone cutting and several other high technologies. And we think that the Great Pyramid was built to be infrastructure and a working machine that would benefit the people that built it. You know, they didn't build it so they could tell us they knew pi. And I don't think that they built it so something could point to something else or have anything to do with stars or religion or whatever.
Right, because you're just completely against the whole Orion theory.
I've researched it, yes, but I think that they built the Great Pyramid to help people in a tangible way.
Yes.
And we think that the Great Pyramid is a unique and efficient water pumping system that would really help modern mankind. And that's what we're doing, is we are doing the best we can to redevelop that ancient technology.
Well, I know that a lot of the graphics in your book fascinate me because I live in the land of locks and dams. I live in Alabama, and we have a complete lock system from one end of the state to the other.
Yes.
Realistically, you should be able to kayak your way from the Tennessee line into the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm not unfamiliar with your theories relevant to how they actually were stepping up. What I was really fascinated by, however, was the fact that they had to take such massive pieces of stone so high. And that was overwhelming to me to contemplate because it would be so difficult in theory.
It is. Well, it is difficult if you're an Egyptologist. The entire science of Egyptology has never moved a payload the weight of one of the heaviest stones of the Great Pyramid, which is 70 tons. They've never moved a payload 1 inch. So yes, it can be very hard. But in the real world, which I think the Great Pyramid was built in the real world, real people needed to achieve the engineering feat of moving heavy stones. And I think that they used water locks similar to those in your area. When the Erie Canal was built, it was 4.5 feet deep. And the barges were able to carry, believe it or not, a capacity of 70 tons. So one end of the Erie Canal is, compared to the other end, is higher than the height of the Great Pyramid. So back in the 1830s, regular people were able to move 70-ton payloads higher than the height of the Great Pyramid. And I think a similar technology was used to build the Great Pyramid because it's fast, controllable, powerful. And in fact, water locks are the system of choice to use in the 21st century to move our heaviest objects, which are aircraft carriers, tankers, and everything else. The Panama Canal has been updated by adding larger water locks because it's the 21st century system of choice. They didn't use a magic wand or contemplate their navel or hum or anything like that. Those were engineers that really needed to do stuff, so they built additional water locks in the Panama Canal. So yes, it's difficult to do unless you do it the easy way.
Well, one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I am not an engineering person other than what I have researched and educated myself on, and that's not generally the best way to go about learning these things. However, you mentioned the Erie Canal and the Panama Canal, both of which have great length, plenty of room, to step up to that level. As each system was stepping up, and I do understand that, you get to the end, to the final lock, and you just allow more water. But they would have to go about doing this in quite a structured environment, right?
Certainly, everything about the Great Pyramid, none of it is to chance, if you will. None of it's a coincidence or anything else. It was created, by design, and every aspect of the Great Pyramid has a purpose. And so, yes, we think that the water locks at the Great Pyramid construction site were incorporated into the casing stones, which are cemented together watertight. The casing stones that still are at the Great Pyramid are cemented together watertight. So, excuse me. So anyway, there's a series of water locks that go up the casing stones. We have a free video series on our website at thepump.org, which depicts that fascinating and very visual process in great detail. I don't know if you've watched all of that, but
I've watched the vast majority.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So the water locks would go up a flight of water locks up the side of the Great Pyramid to build the Great Pyramid level by level, including the casing stones. So we think it was built level by level. So, and you don't need to be an engineer, because a lot of this makes, if I can say this, common sense. People that watch the video series or read my books, my feedback is a lot of people say that it's compelling. And
it is compelling.
I appreciate that, and that it makes sense. So, the interest has been very high. But they can watch the video series to see how all the stones, including the capstone, if there was one, was set in place. And it's quite a lot of computer generated animations for people to see the whole process.
Two things that I learned over this past summer were one from an Egyptologist, one from Eric von Daniken. From Eric von Daniken, who's rather the original Indiana Jones, and was allowed access through the pyramids before they were shut down, right? Before they realized that was not a good thing. And I believe he would still be granted that access based on his history of research there and his fascination. But he said that in the bottom of the pyramid, there's a clear pool, and that clear pool is constant and fresh and blue, and that doesn't change. So that means that there is water flowing in there. So there's no reason to doubt that would not be able to have locks dredged, have diversions for the water dredged to come to the pyramid, because we don't know what the structure of the landscape was back then. Things change, and especially I would think with shifting sands. But the second thing was through an Egyptologist who is on television, and he said that a document, a papyrus, had been found that indicated that the pyramids were actually built in half the time that was generally considered fact. They found a papyrus that a foreman had created, like a journal page, and it was 20-something years that it took to build it. And if you look at all of the different ways to do that, I feel that being able to mobilize the stones in the manner you suggest is the only way that